All right. Now let's talk a little bit about let's talk a little bit about different paths. In one of my previous videos, I talked about rune magic and casting of runes. One thing that is good to do, in my personal opinion, is honor your ancestors. Ancestor worship is really big in a lot of cultures, and I feel like if you can connect with your ancestors, you're going to feel a lot better about having some sort of support structure. Angels and other things that you have an affinity towards. Those things can also bless you and protect you and guide you on your path. You're going to want somebody, maybe a grandmother or grandfather that passed, to help guide you on your path. You're going to want your spirit animal, which you can do through shamanistic journeying. Let's start with the beginning of time. Because at the beginning of time, we have a language called Sanskrit. We also have runes. Sanskrit is primarily the religion in India is Hinduism. And so that is the most ancient that we have that's currently that you can practice. Yoga and visiting a monastery will really help with that. Although I believe in eating meat. So that comes more with Astra Thru, which is also ancient. You talk about standing stones of runes. The origin of the English language actually was from Prussia and Germany. It continued through, and that was runes. And later it was changed to Greek and Latin, and eventually we got our language today. So find a little bit about your ancestry. I go through Germany, I go through England, so I go for a lot of the Celtic path was one of my first callings. As we go through history, we're going to start to see artifacts. We're going to start to see the pyramids and the pictographs on the pyramids. We're going to start to dig up ancient sites, and we're going to see standing stones like Stonehenge and whatnot, and how they used to strip the flesh off of their dead and dye the bones with red ochre. It was one of the most original forms of burial and of paganism. Followed through with that, and of course we don't do that now, but as we're looking through the artifacts, that's the best way, archaeology, to kind of tell you where the origin of religions are. And if you care about anything ancient, I would suggest searching out some of those paths, because they have a lot of power. And then you get to sort of the oral tradition. The oral tradition is based in shamanism. And that was a tribe of people who had a gay or bisexual or trans person who was guiding and leading the clan. They used forms of divination. They connected with the gods, and they were unique. And because of your uniqueness, that gives you the ability to lead other people, lead heterosexuals, lead bisexuals who are younger than you, who have less experience. And these sort of things I thought about a lot when I was formulating my first coven. Now, a coven is a group of people with a common purpose who meet together, usually outside, usually out in nature, and they worship. Now, shamanism, there's some dark twists to it, but the shaman that I associated with was hoodoo, and I suggest if you don't want to mess with spirits or evil energy, to steer clear of that, because it's just, there's the potential that darkness and bad luck can follow you if you believe that. In my personal opinion, I've been to a hoodoo shop, I didn't get a good vibe, so I decided, because I had some brief exposure, I believe there's some good there, and I did do a shamanistic journeying of myself, and I had my spirit guide and ancestor show up to me, and I found out what my spirit animal was, and this all comes through deep meditation. So find a shaman that can do that. Shamanism is pretty good. Hoodoo is so-so as far as the vibe I got. Hinduism is elevated. It's like awesome. It heals you, it helps you, they're positive energy, they have dancing, laughing, celebrations. It's awesome. Now, then I started studying Astra Thru. Now, Astra Thru is a Prussia Germanic heritage, a religion, and I was going to this store called the Golden Break Bookstore in Salt Lake City, and I was looking through books and reading, and I came across this rune magic book, and I had been interested on how to amplify my spells through pictures. And then I realized the symbology, and as I was just picking it up, I picked it up, and a strong energy filled me. It rushed through me, and I felt I should buy this book. But at the time, I didn't know if I wanted to spend 21 or 22 bucks because I was living in a more expensive place and just didn't have a ton of extra money. So I kind of went through, and I kept coming back to that bookstore, and for about a month or 3 weeks or so, I kept getting this vibe: you should buy that book, you should buy that book. So finally I went, and I decided today's the day. I went and I bought it, and I started to study it, and I started to do the chants that are in there and the different hand signals, because the nice thing about Thor's hammer religions, you know, Odin and whatnot, they're very practical. They're not about elaborate rituals. They're not about having everything perfect. It's about you're going around, you know different hand gestures, you know different runes, you have protection, and then you just can cast a spell wherever you're at. You don't need a lot of preparation. A witch who told me, just use your finger. Your finger is your wand. You are magic. You know, this world is permeated with this metaphysical energy, and if you learn the ebbs and flows of it, you can tap into it. So, after reading a bit about being a solitary Wiccan, I believed in a lot of the things that the author talked to me about. And I watched a YouTube video on him, because I'm big on watching YouTube videos so you can get a feel for someone. Like Oberon Zell Ravenheart. One of the earliest things I identified first as a druid. I went on a dream quest. I climbed the tallest tree in the forest, and it was a pine. And I'm holding on to it, and it actually had two central two central branches at the very tip top. And as I'm holding this, it breaks off in my hand. And that was my staff for quite a few years. I owned that staff, and I felt, hey, I'm connected with the power of nature, the tallest part in the forest. And it was very personal to me and very healing. I got back to my parents' place, and I felt like I had been reborn. It's important to have those initial experiences and have them be pure and have them not. The best thing I can tell you is, before you go on trying to find your path, don't watch a lot of videos, don't mimic people, but ponder. Ponder at where you want your energy to come from, what you have an affinity towards. Think of what magic means to you before you even practice it or read anything. You don't want it clouded. After I became a druid, I studied at the Grey School of Wizardry, and I really believe in the wizardry philosophy by Oberon Zell Ravenheart, saying, you know, wizardry is a science. It's called metaphysics. And if you look through time, there was a lot of overlap between metaphysics and science, what we call hard science or modern day science. Eventually, the Catholic Church, needing to maintain their status quo, threw out metaphysics and just kept part of the science, what they considered the hard sciences. They threw out alchemy, they replaced it with chemistry. They threw out astrology, and they kept astronomy. They did a lot of things like this as it began to evolve, and because of that, a lot of people lost touch with metaphysics. Now, if you study Wicca, there are clothed Wiccan groups. It's pretty positive. When you branch into witchcraft, and I went to this place called Crone's Hollow, and I felt a dark energy or a more heavy energy. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. It's just that they were practicing what some people would consider black magic or cursing of other individuals. Now, if an individual has cursed you or done something wrong for you, you can turn that energy back on them. Some of your protection spells might do that innately, and karma will take care of that ability to by the law of three, according to Wicca, have it come back on them. Witches don't believe in the law of three, and a lot of them believe that it's okay to use darker means to achieve a specific purpose. I think some of the people who are darker practitioners maybe were some of the reason the witch hunts started, and people started hunting the midwives and anyone who worked with herbs at all. You know, they could have been a physician, but they were still burned at the stake or caused to drown or other evil things that the Inquisition did in Italy. So I'll talk a little bit more about some other paths in my next video.